Good morning, everybody. Sorry about the little bit of a delay. You know that what they say, waiting on a woman. The whole song about that. Anyway, good morning. Happy 4th of July weekend. We This now marks a new month in the history of blacksmithing. So we'll get started on that. Good morning. We've got Jack Pines Blacksmithing in first. Shane Lalonde, Eric, Trail Dust, aka Turtle Dust, Bortagov, Paul Orchard, Rusty Hubcap Forge, Stephen Parsons, excuse me, Michael Hayes, Robert Whitney, and John Burnell in the house, and Jeff Killian. That's about it for right now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So we'll start this off with a little bit of a "How was your week?" Situation, and I guess in this segment we'll find out why we're late. So,
Yeah.
how was your week?
My week was busy. I mean, busy. I did have a day off. I got off. I was off on Wednesday, and I still got 99 hours. I just finished up that last one. Like in 2 hours. So, but yeah, I literally just came rolling in. I mean, I left yesterday and I was like, "Psh, we're just gonna go finish up on a rig move, finish rig up on night shift is a cakewalk. It's typically all I got to do is set one piece. I roll in because the backyard's all put together, the subs and derricks put together, just waiting for the subs to go up, waiting for the derrick to go up, and then I grab the catwalk, set the catwalk, and I'm out. And sometimes that's 15 minutes after I get there. But typically, 2 a.m. Is about the time when I go to grab my last piece and set it. And this morning when I left location, or at noon today when I left the old location, I was like, oh yeah, we should be out of here by 2 or 3, no problem. And yeah, at 3 I decided to drive back to the yard and get my time book because we have to have our time in by 7 a.m. And so at 3 I drove back to the yard, got my time book, and filled all that out and took pictures of my timesheets and sent them in. And yeah, I literally at 7 o'clock on the money. They're like, "Hey, Alex, go get those flow line skids and those open tops and bring them up here and stash them in the corner. Grab the catwalk, put it up here, and then you can tight line and f off." And I was like, "Okay, I could have done this 3 4 hours ago, but whatever. So I got all that stuff pulled up in there, tight line, and told Yamez, hey, can we go just a little bit late because I'm gonna get to the yard at 5 till, and I was actually walking in at 59, so I was like, I missed it by a hair, but yeah, that was my week in a nutshell. It was long days. I mean, like I said, basically 100-hour work week, and but it was a good week. So the weather was actually nice. It wasn't 110. It was like only 100, and that's pretty all right, I guess. But that's my week. I didn't do anything except work, and I only got in like 3 episodes of Yellowstone this week. I got 3 left, and I'm done with the series, or at least what the series has so far. I don't even know if there's going to be more or not. I haven't even looked into that, but that's where I'm at on that. And yeah, no, mommy needs a cold beer. Yamas, how was your week?
um, Hectic, strange, busy. You all know the usuals. Let me see. Work wise, I mean, same old, same old. We're between large jobs right now. So, like, this week was a whole bunch of oddball, like, small things. So, it was like, you know, troubleshooting jobs, and those can be, 5 minutes or 5 hours, depending on what I find when I open up the walls, so to speak. And so, it's like a couple of them took a little bit, but, several of them, it was like, you know, walk in and hey, this light doesn't work. Oh, there's a switch over here. that you hung a coat in front of, So it's always the switch. Neat little appliance thing. I got swapped out a microwave slash convection oven. Customer had gotten a new one shipped to him because the old one was broken, and it was like, all right, and he goes, oh, you got a dumpster? Or do you want to take this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And he goes, yeah, the only thing wrong with it is the handle is loose. He got it swapped out because the handle was loose. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, sure, I'll put it in my shop and fix the handle. And I got it home and I looked it up, and it's like a $2,500 appliance. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put this on Marketplace. So it was like, you know, also got a generator that I need to fix, and yeah, my brother and sister-in-law are 3 weeks out moving, and the crunch time is now. I mean, every spare moment that I have is spent trying to prepare that house for them to move in. Yesterday, I was over there from 9 in the morning till about, well, not fully over there because I was there at 9 in the morning till about 2, 3, and then got home and had to run up to Home Depot and get a load of flooring and into the back of the truck, and then I had to drive it back over there and unload it into the house. 40 boxes that are 40 pounds each, out of Home Depot and into the truck, and then out of the truck and then into the house, opened and set so they can acclimate, so that Monday we can start installing flooring. I have 3 days of scheduled work over at that house, of scheduled time at that house, and me and my coworker are going to be going over there on Saturdays, donating time to make sure we get this stuff, the flooring down, done, and ready. I would like real quick reading the chat. Mr. Jack Pines, who usually goes on at noon on Sundays, Eastern, says he may not be able to go live today. He will be possibly going live on the 4th, and as per usual, John Burnell is giving him crap for that, as as John does. And I would like to tell John to shut up and tell Jack, you know what, do what you got to do. Sometimes you got to take some time off, so there you go. Speaking of which,
Well,
what?
I just oh, I'm just sitting here like I'm watching the YouTube stream as I'm doing this, and okay, I'm gonna have to switch that back. So I went to the settings and I went to quality, and it said auto, and auto had it at 144p, and I was like, screw that, 720. So it reset to 720. I was like, whoa, that's a big difference. But now I'm lagging though, because it's between my transmit and receive, it's a little bit maybe taxing on the Starlink. Well, it shouldn't be taxing on the Starlink. Maybe it's I don't know. But I'll just go back to 44. I like me blurry better.
Right. I like me blurry too. Speaking of me blurry, yeah, I rewatched the stream from last week, the lightning, the thunderstorm stream, and I didn't realize how bad the image was, especially once I lost power and it switched over to 5G. It was like horrible. But anyway, yeah. So,
Oh my!
huh?
I'm in the middle of editing the last one that I had to phone in when I was using my wireless earbuds. I had no idea the audio was that bad. Oh my
It,
gosh!
there's sometimes nothing can be done about it.
I know, and I'm just cringing, and so like I have to clip out every place where I talk and raise the decibels raise it 5 decibels just to match you and Adam, and it's still, it just, oh, I mean, it's cringe. And I was on my phone, so I mean, like, I don't have backup audio, it's like, oh, but it's still topical enough. Like, I thought about it for a minute, and I was like, I was just gonna clip me out completely. Yeah, I was just gonna like just gonna clip me out of this episode. But then, I mean, like I only talked like 3 times, I mean, because I was busy last week, and so I was like, okay, wait, I got like 3 5-minute spiels. I'll just go ahead and leave them as horrible as they are. So yeah,
Right.
and I was so mad that I forgot this stuff,
Well, those who listen to the
and then
podcast do know our format. So it's not, this is the podcast is a secondary way to listen to this. So but anyway, yeah. So
in other news,
in other news, I have just a little bit of information with all the busyness that I have in my off hours. Sunday technically being an off hour day, I there may be some times coming up where we have to do some pre-recorded shows, and maybe some times coming up where I may have to pass the buck on my evening forging. I am just falling way behind in getting stuff done, and I need to focus on things. As a matter of
good morning.
fact, the last week of this month will most likely be pre-recorded because I will be helping my brother and sister move into their new house all night and into Sunday, all Saturday night and into Sunday. But it's going to be fun because, I get to teach him how to take care of a property. Like I know how to do it. I know how to do it. I just don't know
Yeah,
the time to do it.
I'd say, you could always use the religious exemption and say, I'm sorry, but his noodliness, the flying spaghetti monster, prohibits me from working on the Sabbath, which is technically Saturday. But
Yeah. But yeah. So, no, I can't do that. There's way too much to be done. There's way too
no,
much to
I
be
know.
done.
It's always that way when you move. You get there with the U-Haul and you're like, we got to unload now. I've got to have this back at 8 a.m.
Right.
There's never any window for your stuff to just sit in the U-Haul out front.
Right. So it's gonna be an interesting month for me, and then after that, an interesting August too. So things are choppy on my end, not bad choppy, just choppy. And yeah, so with that, I would like to move into what's up, Granddads. What's up, Mr. Coffee? I would like to get into our kind of an introduction to the topic of this month and the topic of this week. This month being July with the 4th of July and all that fun stuff. It is Colonial America. Like Colonial America, Blacksmiths, ironworks. We're talking about the period from roughly 1500 to 17, early, late 1700s. And we may even touch into, early 1800s. We'll see. But primarily colonial America. And today we're going to be discussing like the start of all of that. The first, say, 50 years or so of colonial America, where you know England was, everybody was sending people over and trying to establish colonies, and the blacksmith's role in that, and the metal, the role of metalworking for that, and how it was, both kind of stifled and spread. So today I've got an article and a little bit of information to go over, and I'm going to read some excerpts out of it. It's a long article, but let me pull it up right quick, and we'll jump right in. Big fair warning on it. I will say this: I read through this a little bit, and I'm going to jump around and try to go chronologically, roughly chronologically. And I will say this: anybody in the chat or in the listener base who has information about Colonial America, Colonial Blacksmithing, and would like to join the show, you are welcome to. Just, for continuity's sake and for politeness sake, if you do want to and join the Discord and hop in the voice, don't just, hop in and start talking. Give us a heads up so that we can, you know, have a smooth transition. So, yeah. Chapter 3 of this part of I'm at the colonialwilliamsburg.org. It's their digital library of history, and it's an amazing read. If you're interested, I will post a link. But chapter 3 is Blacksmiths in Colonial Virginia. Now, I don't have Adam here to go into the history of the different companies. Like, he probably historian, he could probably pull up the tax receipts from, companies in the 1600s. The freaking genius. I was going to call him a jerk,
Yeah,
but he's
yeah.
not.
What I got here, the Southampton. Man, I just had it. Where was it? And the Southampton Adventurers, the East India Trading Company. I mean,
The
like.
Virginia Company. Now, keeping in mind, one thing for this period that I kind of want to address when hearing names of things, Virginia back in the 1600s was not Virginia as we know it now. Virginia back in the 1600s was like pretty much the entire central East Coast, spanned from like, Rhode Island down to, South Carolina. That was Virginia, and it was named after, the Virgin Queen Elizabeth. So the Virginia Company realized that tools and men to keep them in order were necessary to carve a settlement out of Virginia's wilderness. The services of a blacksmith were vital to the success of the colony, not only for repairing tools, but also to keep firearms and other weapons in usable condition. Excuse me. It was only natural then for a blacksmith, George Reed, to accompany the first settlers in Virginia in 1607. He was joined later by another blacksmith, Richard Dole, and a gunsmith, Peter Keffer, and I believe we've discussed these names before in the past. They sound so familiar, but that could just be my own.
They do sound familiar for some reason.
Yeah, I have discussed them before in the past. I know this. I just, my memory. And the gunsmith Peter Keffer, who arrived next year in 1608. When they arrived with the first supply. So another thing to remember, and this is kind of important for knowing, thinking about timelines in colonial history. There wasn't an easy way to bring supplies and colonists over back and forth. It was about roughly a year's journey from arriving, setting up, like unloading the ships, preparing a crew, loading it, and getting it all over, and all that fun stuff. It took about a year between any supply. The Virginia Company made every attempt to keep the colony supplied with craftsmen necessary for the development of the settlement, and they offered inducements to emigrate to Virginia. The inducements were apparently effective because other smiths soon arrived at Jamestown. In 1611, for instance, Sir Thomas Dale reported that a smith's forge was being constructed at Jamestown, and 5 years later, John Rolfe wrote that the blacksmiths followed their trade in the colony. Among the articles purchased for Smith's the name 100 in 1618 were a great pair of bellows and an anvil for the smith. By 1622, John Jackson, blacksmith and gunsmith, had a shop at Jamestown, and in 1623, Sir Thomas Wyatt mentioned John Blythe, a smith who was employed in his trade. George Menfrey's blacksmith forge was reported to be in operation by 1626. So, if I may pause there, in that year, the General Court of Virginia ordered William Ramshaw to work at the trade of the blacksmith until he has paid off his work debt to Michael Marshett. If I may pause there, if you hear some of those dates, the first blacksmiths arrived, like the first colonial blacksmiths arrived in the Virginias in very early 1607, and it was you know bet in the 1620s when shops actually started to become productive and like there were small little shops and then actual like, okay, this is a set shop now, instead of just some guy in a smithy, fixing things and making things for the town, for not even a town, for the colony, you know. My batteries on my headphones just died. Dang, I think. But yeah, so there's sort of a reason, an underlying reason for that seemingly delay, and that was partial to the times of how kind of slow things moved. We didn't have mines back then to provide ourselves with things. That was purely waiting on supplies, waiting on iron. So it's like the majority of the blacksmiths at the time, they were confined to repairing broken articles and tools. Ironwork for special construction was usually imported, so it was just quick fix things. So there was really no. It was as important and vital as it was for the success of the colony. There was really no money in it at the time, because everything that was made was really imported. Everything important was imported. Now, I'm going to jump a little bit into this. I'm going to go into let me scroll up. I believe it is the first production ironworks in the Americas, and that was Fallen Rocks.
Hey, can I get a pause for a second?
Yes, you may. Well,
I don't know what the freak is going on here, but like the YouTube player stops, right? Or it buffers, right? And so I go grab the little dot and I click it and I drag it over to the end. Well, now it's paused. And if I go to slide back over to push play, the little red dot goes all the way back to the beginning. No matter what I do, it just follows my mouse across the screen from the beginning of the stream into the stream, beginning of the stream, and I'm like, no matter where
reload.
Okay.
Your user interface is stuck on a what's-a-majiggy. You got to reload. That happens to me a lot.
I've never seen that before, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I'm an idiot, I guess.
Right.
Okay, sorry for.
No, it's totally okay. I could take that pause to check the chat real quick.
Fighting my screen, I couldn't pay attention to what's going on.
Let me see. Yeah, welcome, Mr. Pekka. Welcome everybody who's popping in. John Coffee. It sucks to hear that you're stuck in bed. Big hug.
I know, right? Now I see why he was asking for a new spine the other day.
Right.
Like, what's I guess at Quad State we're gonna have to turn a custom peg leg and forge a new spine.
Yeah, well, what we can do is, in addition to the peg leg for Mr. Hubcap, we can do a inversion table for Mr. Coffee. I'm gonna forge
I wanted a table so bad.
I want to make one. Anyway, so I'm bouncing back to chapter 2 on this, and now I may not get to all the paragraphs that I read, but I can kind of do a brief summary of some of them from what I remember from reading them. So chapter 2, iron and coal production. One of the specific objectives of the Virginia Company was to establish an iron industry in Virginia. In addition to gold, iron ore was one of the first commodities to be searched by the colonists. Iron ore was one of the first exports from Jamestown to England, and some of the ore was evidently smelted at Jamestown. In September 1607, Captain John Smith implied that iron was being manufactured in the colony. He wrote that the colony's best commodities was iron, which he made into little chisels. And I'm not sure if that means chisels or if chisel is, we need our historian here. I'm not clicking a footnote because that'll bring me all the way to the bottom. Anyway, 1 year after the settlement, 7 tons of iron were smelted in Bristol from Virginia ore, and that was recorded in 1612. Actually, it's the writing. It's from William Strachey. It says Sir Dale has I'm not reading. It's written in Old English. Sir Dale hath mentioned in his letters to the worthies of the council of a goodly iron mine, and Captain Newport hath brought home of the. I can't do that.
I've literally got one here that's written the same way.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
Read.
It's so difficult to read, so I'm not going to read the letters too.
It's fascinating how much the English language changes.
Oh
Not
my
even
gosh!
But like, this is borderline unintelligible.
I know,
like,
right?
In another 100 years, this will be unintelligible to somebody that's not educated in Old English.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I can like sound it out and know what words they're meaning, like
yeah. So I'm gonna
four score. I mean, who says four score except Adam these days?
Right, Fortnite, which is not a game apparently, or not just a game. Anyway, as early as 1610, the Virginia Company was making plans for new ironworks. In that year, they advertised for blacksmiths, bellow makers, edge tool makers, and cutlers, armorers, gun makers, iron miners, iron finers, founders, hammermen, millwrights, and colliers for charcoal. By 1619, the first full-scale ironworks in English America began operations at Falling Creek, about 60 miles above Jamestown in what is now known as Chesterfield County. Some iron made at the works was sent to England in August or September of 1620. In 1622, however, just before the completion of an expansion of the works, the Indians fell upon the workmen and killed most of them. During the massacre, the buildings and equipment were destroyed. This disaster put an end to the Falling Creek works, and no substantial ironworks were built in Virginia until the 18th century. With the loss of such a large investment, the Virginia Company apparently gave up the idea of reestablishing ironworks. It was proposed to send over workmen to make iron by bloomery, and then iron made by this method was shipped to England before 1622. And the article goes into describing the bloomery process, which we all know. We've all done it.
Yeah, we've all made a successful bloom. I mean,
every single one of us. Like I'm doing one right now.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's as commonplace as forge welds.
But okay, so after it does the 3 paragraphs of how to do that, it goes in, after the destruction of the Falling Creek Ironworks, no blast furnaces were built in Virginia until after 1700. Several attempts were made to reestablish the Falling Creek works in the 17th century, but they all failed mainly because the capital necessary for such an undertaking was not available. Nevertheless, interest continued in ironworks. In 1630, Governor John Harvey shipped samples of iron ore from Virginia to England to be analyzed. 2 years later, Harvey asked for skilled workers to be sent to Virginia to set the ironworks on footy. I love Old English. The English government had dreams of establishing a large iron industry in Virginia, and then realized private capital alone could not support and develop such an undertaking. In 1662, Governor William Berkeley asked his opinion on the best way to undertake construction of ironworks in the colony. Why do I set myself up for this, Alexis? I just set myself up to read another, Old English note.
This time give it a shot. Let's see how you do.
There's a lot of thereuntos and erections and okay. Amongst other good works we desire to erect in that our colony of Virginia, we have a desire to erect such an ironwork as may be considerable and above what a private undertaking can go through, and therefore, if we find, with an E, encouragement thereunto resolve to undertake it ourself, and in order thereto, we would, oh my God. So, love you guys. This is like me trying to read that Chinese article. Basically, he said, he's asking for advice on how best to undertake he's asking the crown for advice on how to undertake and make this profitable. And in a nutshell, let me, try to. Yeah, in a nutshell, they weren't able to get the capital to start this until, to really do this in earnest until the 1800s or the 18th century, 1700s. And there was something that I was reading, and I'm trying to find it again to read it so that you guys don't just accuse me of being, whatever. And it's that England realized, the crown realized at the time, that once all this money invested into getting production, like essentially for the time, mass production grade ironworks going in the colonies, it would create a sense of independence. It would create, a next step to independence. And they relied heavily on imports and exports as a profitable business model for the colonies. So it was kind of like they held back on some of that. And yeah, and it wasn't until, they started, the colonies kind of said, well, we'll just do it ourselves. And some of the, they started coal mining colonies, like little coal mining outposts and charcoal making outposts, and to help feed, instead of relying on imported goods to get these things going, they kind of just did it themselves in the early 1700s. But yeah, so skimming past. And that brings us back to chapter 3, which we had already discussed. And so yeah, there's that is a very brief introduction to the very start of metalworking in early colonial America. It's like, initially, from what I'm reading and from what I'm understanding with my small, smooth brain, is, early on, the early blacksmiths were there to pretty much be a support for the colony. It wasn't to create an industry. It was to be a support for the colonies. The individual, like, we've got to be able to fix what we have instead of waiting a year to get new things, So that was the initial start of blacksmithing in, American colonial times, English American times. And, the attempts to start a, essentially production, our own iron production, to kind of break us away from needing to wait on, supply shipments, failed for various reasons, Falling Creek Massacre, the English government thinking it wasn't fiscally, not responsible is the wrong word, fiscally viable and not really as important for what it was. So it's like a lot of things kind of held it back for that. And, I hate to have that, like, flourishing of American pride by saying, well, if we can't get you to do it, if we can't get, the government that's supposedly supporting us to provide us with what we need to do, what you want us to do, what you sent us here to do, we'll just do it ourselves. And, you know, everybody knows history. That ultimately turned into, well, if we're doing it all ourselves, why do we need you? Which ultimately was what the crown was afraid of, you know. And that statement and whatnot is pure opinion, you know. That's pure my take on it. No tea party today. Um, I'm gonna use goodly from now on. Yeah, no, it's reading a lot of this. It's very interesting. It's very 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 interesting stuff. And I'm getting the eye roll here. Everybody dreads the dreaded eye roll.
No, I'm not. I'm just no. Continue.
I mean, I'm.
Patiently waiting for my turn.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead. I'm stammering on because I've reached the end of what I wanted to discuss, and now would
Right.
like to
Okay.
get
So
yeah.
I started the research part last night. I got the location and I decided I was chatting with a friend and I was like, instead of playing Minecraft all night, maybe I should do some research, And I was like, yeah, I think I will. Instead of just spending an hour before, because at the time I had also planned to be in at 3 o'clock in the morning and have plenty of time to do research.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad now I didn't put off till tomorrow what I can do today. So I started reading the articles on the or papers on the Fallen Creek Ironworks and what was the other one?
Saugus.
Saugus. Yeah, yeah. Fascinating stuff. I mean, I'm just like it for me. What really kind of blew my mind was how much money the financing company, the parent company that fronted the money for it, how much money they were out. I mean, the Fallen Creek thing was 4,000 pounds.
Which back
Four
then,
thousand 4,000 pounds sterling in 1620. That is a massive amount of money. Saugus, it was financed with 15,000 pounds. And the intention of these are yeah, European um um you know trade and exploration companies, and the idea was, I mean, at the time, um people in Europe saw the Americas as the latest get rich quick scheme, equivalent of like the West snake oil salesman or what have you. And so, it was like the colonist type people, the people that would have been the ones that are like, yeah, I got nothing. Let's get on a boat and go get rich. I mean, and then you had the aristocratic type people who would just be like, I'll tell you what, I'll pay for your trip, but you got to send me back, whatever. And but yeah, I mean, I understand how much 15,000 pounds was I mean, I mean, that's today's equivalent of like $30 million. I mean, like, that is a lot of freaking money. And it was all for nothing. I mean, the idea with Saugus, or the original idea was to pour these pigs of cast iron and then throw them on a boat and ship them back to England. And it proved to be fairly not realistic because of the cost of shipping. There at the time, there weren't very many ships, and the cost of shipping that iron back was exorbitantly high. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, they wound up not making any money from it, and it wound up failing due to a labor shortage in 1668, I believe it was. And and I just it wasn't until like the early 1700s where the infrastructure had built up. There were more ships. There was regular shipping, and it actually became profitable in the early 1700s, early like 1721, 22, 23, somewhere in that area, is where it started getting profitable to actually manufacture stuff here, and ship it back. And one of the biggest things was, like iron, and then of course everybody was looking for the gold that was found by Cabeza de Vaca and Cortez and those guys when they um, relieved the Incas and the Aztecs of their
riches.
riches. Yeah. And then once they realized what they were up to, were like, hey, fellas, You think this is good stuff? You got to check out the Seven Cities of Cibola. That's where the real action's at.
Yeah.
You know? And we all know how that wild goose chase went. But I wanted to, in my research last night, I was reading an article, and the article mentioned De Re Metallica, and I know I've brought this book up before because it's a freaking good book, and so I'm doing research, and then I'm like, oh yeah, so I just look up De Re Metallica real quick, and you can just like read it online for free. It's not, you don't have to buy it. Of course, you can buy it, but I wanted to read the foreword of the thing. De Re Metallica was written in Latin, and the last translation into English was done in 1950. And so they included this entire like poem or preface in its original Latin. And at the end they just put in the last bit of it to give a bit of context. And the very last few lines of the preface to De Re Metallica are, "He doth raise his country's fame with his own, and in the mouths of nations yet unborn, his praises shall be sung. Death comes to all, but great achievements raise a monument which shall endure until the sun grows cold." Kind of a neat little in the thing. And then I wanted to read an excerpt to just kind of, and please tell me it didn't move my thing, and it did. Damn it! So I got to find it from scratch. I wanted to read just a little bit of an excerpt to kind of give you an idea of the way this book is written, because I doubt that anybody else has read De Re Metallica, being that it was written in like 1530 something.
I've read it cover to
Dang it!
cover
Yeah, I know you have. I had a whole. I had. Oh, there it is. Okay, I
in its
figured out where I
original
had.
Latin.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that because that would strain me for a bit. For this reason, we learn from the history of nearly all ages that very many men have been made rich by the mines, and the fortunes of many kings have been much amplified thereby. But I will not now speak more of these matters, because I have dealt with these subjects partly in the first book of this work, and partly in the other work entitled De Virtubis et Nobis Metallis, where I have refuted the charges which have been made against metals and against miners. Now, although the art of husbandry, which I willingly rank with the art of mining, appears to be divided into many branches, yet is not separated into so many as this art of ours, nor can I teach the principles of this as easily as Columella did of that. He had at hand many writers upon husbandry whom he could follow. In fact, there are more than 50 Greek authors whom Marcus Varro enumerates, and more than 10 Latin ones whom Columella himself mentions. I have only one whom I can follow. That is C. Plinius Secundus, that is Pliny the Younger, which we talked about in the Rome episodes. Uh, and he expounds only very few methods of digging ores and of making metals. Far from the whole of the art having been treated by any one writer, those who have written occasionally on any one or other of its branches have not even dealt completely with a single one of them. Moreover, there is a great scarcity even of these, since alone of all of the Greeks, Strato Lampascus, the successor of Theophrastus, wrote a book on the subject, De Machinis Metallicis, except perhaps a work by the poet Philo, a small part of which embraced to some degree the occupation of mining. And anyways, to me that is fascinating. The language of it, I mean, because it's kind of it's mostly a direct translation from Latin, but it's also adjusted to be um not what's the word I'm looking for? Cognitive, makes sense, to make it make sense. It's adjusted to make it make sense.
Colloquial.
I'm not. I don't think that's it, but if you get it, if you yeah, nobody's gonna do that. I was gonna say, if you want if you want to check it out, all you got to do is Google DE space RE space Metallica, De Re Metallica, and it's the Guggenheim Project has it for free, and it's like literally one paragraph. You know, you just scroll down continuously, but nobody here is going to read that. But it's one of my guilty pleasures, and I'll keep that to myself, I guess. Um, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, this month we're going to be talking Colonial Ironwork. Today we kind of focused on the blacksmiths, the trained ironworkers coming over from England or not trained, but master ironworkers, whatever, coming over to get things started and where that went from there. And sometimes they survived, sometimes they didn't, and
Yeah.
you know. It was rough times back then. I mean, like sometimes you didn't survive because it was too darn cold, and sometimes you didn't survive because the locals didn't want you there.
And sometimes you just disappeared without a trace and nobody knows exactly what happened,
Yep.
aka the lost colony of Roanoke. Which, if you're ever in the area and you can catch the play over at the Roanoke Theater over there in Manio, Lost Colony play. It's the longest running outdoor play of
So
all time.
I got a question for you, Yamez. The ironworks at Saugus. The people there were sent up from Jonestown. How is Jonestown related to this region and whatnot? Because I didn't get into that, and I'm curious. I've heard the thing Jonestown, and it's like something tragic did or almost happened there, but I don't know exactly what that is.
I don't know.
Oh, you got.
I don't have Jonestown pulled up.
Oh, okay.
I know
Well,
that I know that the Fallen
sorry,
Rock was north of Jamestown.
I'd have prep. No, there was a thing with Jonestown there that I just read briefly in one of the articles I read how they almost didn't make it through a winter or something like that because they spent a lot of time setting up their ironworks or their mining facilities, and they didn't spend enough time like stocking away food and planting and like getting ready for. They were unaware of how like rough the winter was going to be, and they didn't prepare adequately for winter, and so they like almost didn't survive, or maybe I don't know if they didn't or whatever. But
Right.
I'll look into it. I'm sorry, it wasn't something that I thought I was going to ask. It just now occurred to me while I mean,
Like, oh,
on the fly.
yeah, you're.
I thought maybe you might have heard of it or read about it or
I get it. I get it. I mean, I live right in the smack dab in the middle of where like what we know as colonial America started. Like I'm between halfway between First Landing Park and Roanoke Island. So it's like, of course, me being the avid historian, know everything about my area. You know.
so you practically live at Colonial Williamsburg, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I know some of the blacksmiths from Colonial Williamsburg, you know, and some of the people that I have talked to have been, their lineage dates back to times like that, and some of the people I think were actually born in times like that, old fogies. But yeah, so Jonestown, not sure if you'd like, we could look into that for next week.
Oh, it's. I don't even know if it's
Well,
relevant. I mean,
it
it
we
might
could
be
look
even
into the
relevant.
seat because here's the other thing. It's like, like we had mentioned, we're discussing colonial period blacksmiths and ironwork, and in addition to discussing the actual techniques and actual works of the time, it's like when you look at, you can't even look this stuff up on YouTube without being inundated with every blacksmith channel out there, from Roy and Black Bear to no
Jack
name,
Pine.
Jack, everybody, has a video that is tagged as colonial blacksmiths in America, or colonial blacksmith, or colonial ironworks, or colonial this, because it's the most common. It's one of the most common modern day recreationists style, because it's a nice blend of artistic and
Yeah.
simplistic,
So, in your reading of Saugus, what is the one thing that they made the most of?
um metal.
They
um
made they made they
You know,
processed iron.
rod and cast iron. You know, it's like they were wrought and
No, no,
cast
no.
iron.
No. That's the wrought. I mean, like, so yeah. I mean, you could, the thing that they made the most of was, okay. So we're talking about colonial America here. What is the one thing you think that everybody needs? Everybody you if you want to sell something to a colonist, everybody's going to need it. What is that product? And made out of metal?
Well, you could argue blades. You could
Yeah.
argue horseshoes. You could argue.
How about nails?
Oh,
You got to build structures. You got to build a house.
yeah.
Everybody needs
Nails,
nails.
nails, hinges, and hardware. Yes. See,
So
in
what Jonestown did, they had their own drawing dies. I mean, Jonestown. See, now what Saugus did is they had their own. I mean, they had everything. They had the furnace. They had everything. And basically, they took all of their wrought and worked it down into small square stock, and they sold sections of short square stock wrought iron that then the end user could cut off into smaller sections and make their own nails. They didn't make the nails individually, but they sold the stock to make nails, and so every end user would have the ability to make their own nails.
yeah,
And in fact, in the article I read, it was talking about how the tour guide at the Saugus Ironworks will make a nail for you on site. Just like real quick, hammer one out.
fun fact about colonial nail making. It was primarily the job of an apprentice to make nails. And I was gonna do a segment next week or the week after on the life of a colonial blacksmith and apprentices and such, but I can go briefly into it right now. You know,
I was going to say the rich people bought their nails. The average person just made their nails.
right. Well,
So I mean, they weren't an apprentice. They were building their house, and they would buy their section of stock, heat it up in the fire or whatever, and with whatever they had, and then just hammer out a nail real quick. I mean, I would imagine that was a skill that everybody kind of had to have if you're going to build a house from scratch. I mean, I get log cabin type thing where they're notched, but you still are going to need nails. I mean, so
yeah.
just
Yeah.
my thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, no, you're correct. What I'm most interested in along the lines of a day in the life of the village blacksmith. Yeah, we were going to do a segment on that, because that's kind of an interesting topic and a broad, not broad, but an interesting topic that would be
make an interesting like recreation show,
right. Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's just interesting, but
No, you're absolutely right. And to be fair, there are a lot of you can look up on YouTube "Day in the Life of a Colonial Blacksmith," and there are dozens of videos doing exactly that. From professional videos done at Colonial Williamsburg to recreationists or what is it called when you Civil War kind of guys.
cosplay.
Yeah, essentially, LARPing as a blacksmith. Like
There you go. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
LARPing.
And it is fascinating. But yeah, from my brief research into the day in the life essentially of the village blacksmiths and the early colonial blacksmiths, the apprentices back then, it's like they were brought on, at a young age, like between 10 and 14 was the typical start age for, apprentice blacksmith. And for the first period of time, your job was essentially delegated to, sweeping and cleaning and running orders and this and that until you could prove to the mastersmith that this is what you were going to do and that you were, a hard worker. Once you proved that, you were allowed to pick up a hammer, and your start was making nails. Pardon?
And so once they know you're going to stick around,
yeah, and so your start was making nails, and essentially the simple stuff. And I find it fascinating that, like, okay, so, like 11 years old, these apprentice blacksmiths are, sitting there making nails all day. And, I think I've made 3 and I suck at it. It's supposedly like it's the first thing blacksmiths used to do, the very first projects in metal was nails, and I can't even make one.
Now we make leaves first.
Yeah, now we make leaves first. So yeah, it's it's interesting. It's like we'll probably put up a show specifically about detailing the life of a pre-colonial, pre-colonial, colonial village blacksmith.
Pre-colonial. Ugh. Hot metal hit with rock.
So with
Prehistory.
that,
Oh, that's bad.
I did get a text message. I got to get off and get going here in a quick second, but my day never stops. I get very little downtime. But yeah, so with that, I would like to enter into our final thoughts segment for what we're hoping to achieve this month and what we're hoping to, or what we discussed today.
Sure. So my final thoughts. Well, okay. Colonial blacksmithing kind of covers a lot of different stuff because there's so much about it. I mean, like there are so many books. It's just like it's mind-boggling. I mean, like some of the stuff that we talk about, researching it can be fairly difficult sometimes because there's not. I mean, take Chinese woots last week for example, knockoff woots.
There was
Oh
one
my
article
goodness.
about that.
There's one article in the world about it, It's like that's all we had.
It's a
And
long article, but there's only one.
I mean, yeah, and I mean, okay, that's the only one that's online. There might be other research materials on it, but
Yeah.
it's not online. And
Yeah.
so that, for our intents and purposes, that was a very difficult subject to breach. Colonial ironwork or metalwork in the early Americas, that is it's actually kind of overwhelming. It's kind of like Rome in the fact that there's just so much
It's
information out
difficult in
there.
the opposite sense of like, there's so much to discuss.
Yeah, it's like there's no point in kind of glossing over and barely touching everything. And so we've got to like pull little pockets and be like, hey, this is interesting. Hey, this is interesting. Because we all know to a certain extent a little bit about colonial ironwork. We've all seen some colonial ironwork and we all kind of have an idea of how it happened, whether that's through
And some of us were
watching
there.
at Colonial Williamsburg or or any other of those LARPing sessions, shall we say? But so I think what we're going to try to do is kind of like pick out little nuggets of things that we find fascinating. Like both of us today doing our own research, kind of like focused in on the whole Fallen Creek Sagas thing. The very first ironworks on the continent, and how they kind of came to be and all that. And I don't really know where we're going to go next week. Maybe we'll let Adam decide that since next week's Adam's week. But
Yeah, Adam, if you're listening right now, be ready next week because I'm taking a break.
yeah, right.
You guys,
And
I got to have like a
I don't
3 or 4 week period of rest after I read that much. My smooth brain.
And so I hope you enjoy what we're trying to do, and just maybe bring to light maybe an aspect of this craft that you weren't aware of, or maybe even just making it a little bit more entertaining than you thought it could be. So, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for chatting. And yeah, y'all have a great week. I know I'm gonna. I can only have a great week. It doesn't matter what happened. Well, death notwithstanding. As
Right.
long as I was on the right side of the dirt, I'm having a great day. So, y'all have a great day too, and stay on the right side of the dirt. And I'll see you next week.
Yeah. My final thoughts are pretty much the same. It's like I'm excited to see, what we choose, and we can't choose everything. So, if you have a favorite topic of colonial work and we don't get to it, I'm sorry. If you really, damn it, get to it, send us a message. Send it into the Gmail, or send it into the Discord chat, or type it after the fact into the comments of this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. All that fun stuff. I am going to play Adam's outro right now.
And for the record, almost everybody here has got us on socials. Drop us a DM. I mean, that works too. If you don't want to go to all the trouble of, what's the email or whatever, flip open your Instagram or your face crack or whatever,
I
and drop one of us a DM.
I'm essentially off Facebook, by the way.
Well, what about Instagram?
What's Instagram?
Well, you have one.
I have it, but I barely use it. I barely use
Okay, so
anything.
drop me and Adam or a DM. I mean, we would
Most people,
appreciate we appreciate anybody sliding up into our DM. So
I read comments.
I will be on that like white on rice. So
Yes. So, thank you all for being, awesome. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for supporting the channel, and a huge thank you to my co-hosts. And Adam just sent me a message trying to be a part of the show, but of course you can't pop on and just say it, but I'm not going to read it right now. Anyway, love you, Adam.
lazy.
Right? Busy, not lazy, busy. So I'm going to go ahead and play Adam's outro for us. And yes, transition.
Just say, thank you very much for listening, guys. You can find Yames on Island Metal Forge on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find Alex at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you have any suggestions for Tool of the Week, Metal of the Week, or any other topic, you can leave them under the hashtag Metal of the Week in the YouTube community chat in Discord, or you can email us at impracticalblacksmiths@gmail.com. If you found us on Anchor, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, or Google Podcasts, we upload generally every Wednesday, or you can join us live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's currently 12:30 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time on Monday morning. However, you should check that against your local time, and that's located at the Island Metal Forge YouTube channel. Finally, thanks for joining us, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, or give us a star rating if you found us on one of the podcasts, and we appreciate your support. Now,
Thank you very much, Adam. I'm just messing with you too over there. I see you in the chat. I appreciate all of you. Thank you, and happy 4th of July. We will see you all next week, and I will probably see you tonight. All right. Adios.